$439 al mes. Dos cuartos y 2 baños y medio. $239 al mes. Welcome, friends. I hope you came dressed up like an Egyptian. If you are dressed up, raise your hand. I would like to put you on spotlight so that the friends can enjoy your costume. Please raise your hand so that I can show you. Let me see. Who came dressed up? Let's see. Let me see. I know Caleb came dressed up. There you go. Let's put Brother Allen. You need to open your camera in order for me to. There you go. Ladies and gentlemen, let me present to you another Egyptian. There you go. Where's your little brother? Okay, camera off. And there is his. All right, guys. Thanks for trying. I'm gonna have to give you an actual costume so that you can dress as a Egyptian. Let me see. Hello, sir, Egypt. Hi, my name is Joseph. My father's name is Jacob. He was later renamed to be called Israel. And this is the story that I am going to tell you today. So let's get started. I'm going to start the presentation. And let me share my screen. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to disable the chat so that if you need to send me a message of something that's not working, it doesn't interrupt the rest of the presentation. We're gonna turn closed caption on. If you like my costume, feel free to put something on the chat. And I think this is unfocused. Okay, so we are ready to rock and roll. Welcome, friends. My name is Joseph, Stalin Acosta, but I'm playing Joseph. And this is my story about the 10 plagues of Egypt. This is a unique perspective since the 10 plagues actually occur hundreds or tens of thousands. Actually, let me see. Once Joseph died, we're talking about, we don't know how many years pass so that the Pharaoh will forget who I was. But before I get started with the story, if you want a more detailed story as to when Jehovah's Jehovah's People's saga started, look out on the near future for the tour Exodus Part 1, because this fight, this enmity between these two groups started with Abraham. So when you see a future tour about Exodus Part 1, that is me right there, Joseph, right next to Abraham. This is Abraham, and this is Isaac. This is where our story began. In Exodus Part 2, we talk about Moses. We talk about the 10 plagues, and we talk about the Exodus out of Egypt. So I hope you guys come. And we have a tour just about the 10 plagues of Egypt. And we have a tour, I believe, is next Monday. The same tour that you're going to watch tonight, but now from an Egyptian point of view. So if you like history, if you like artificial intelligence, come and we will show you what artificial intelligence and dressing up can actually do to your family study. But we would like to ask you or to beg you that you share the Zoom ID, you share this invites with other friends. If you see our post in social media, if you get an email from us, it's because we want you to share this information with others. Right now, there are 200 connections right now joining us on this first time that I'm presenting this tour. So, what is the tour about? Think about this. What will the man who once saved Egypt view its destruction? How will Joseph view the 10 plagues of Egypt? This presentation explores a unique, never seen before perspective on the Exodus story. How much do you know about Joseph? Can anybody tell me how Joseph became from slave became to a ruler? Does anybody remember how that happened? Kimberly,
His brothers sold him into slavery.
that's right. That's one part. Thank you, Kimberly. Caleb,
I'd like to read for you.
you would like to read for me? Okay, I'm asking a question, so raise your hand when we ask for reading. But right now, how did Joseph become slave? And I think Kimberly said that the brothers sold him to slavery. But how did he become a ruler? LaRonda,
Well, after he had been imprisoned, um, and he was noticed for his being able to um, um,
interpret.
uh, interpret dreams. He went before the Pharaoh and he did his thing, and then the Pharaoh made him ruler of his household.
There you go. Very good, LaRonda. Very good. Rosa, lower your hand. And yeah, we got very good. You guys did very good. How did Joseph save the nation of Egypt? How did he do that? Monica.
Okay. He had divine dreams from Jehovah,
Mhm.
and he stored grains that sustained Egypt through the 7-year famine.
There you go. Very good. Very good. How did Joseph family reunited because it feels so good? Marcelina.
Because he sent his family to come to Egypt because he knew that they would not have food to eat unless they came.
Mm-hmm. So we're going to see how all of this information that you guys shared today, and I thank you for being prepared, how all this information connected with Jehovah's will, and you're going to see how that happened. So Joseph was part of a new dynasty, a dynasty that rely on his interpretation of dreams. The betrayal came when his brothers actually sold him to get rid of him. But we're going to see the divine response to the 10 plagues of Egypt. Can anybody help me read the introduction to this presentation today? Now, I do need a reader. Caleb,
Introduction. This presentation delves into the story of what could have been the 10 plagues through Joseph's eyes. exploring how his experiences in Egypt shaped the understanding of these events.
There you go. So we're going to see how this took place. But let's begin with Joseph's life. Wouldn't it be good to know when was the first time Joseph's name appeared in the Bible? Can anybody help me read the first time that Joseph's name appeared in the Bible? And friends, I am going to give priority to children, and children are identified if they have 1 or 2 stars in front of their names. If I don't see them, then I will call the adults. Bunny, when was the first time Joseph's name appeared in the Bible?
The first Bible verse where the name Joseph appears is Genesis 30:24. It says, "So she named him Joseph, saying, 'May Jehovah add another son to me.'" This verse refers to the birth of Joseph, the son of Jacob and Rachel.
There you go. Interesting. Joseph's name means, don't worry, it's in the verse, but now I'm going to show you another slide so that you can see how happy Rachel was when Joseph was born. Can anybody help me read the actual meaning of Joseph, which is actually a short form of another name? Let's invite the Ford family.
Joseph, shortened form of Josephiah,
Mm-hmm.
meaning may Jah add, increase. Jah has added, increased. At this time, Jacob was evidently 91 years old.
All right, all right. Thank you for family. Why does this make sense that Rachel will call Joseph Jehovah have added another son to me? What was the problem with Rachel? What was the problem with Rachel that she would express Jehovah? She had 2, 3 other boys from another mom, but this one was her own. Rita.
Because she was of age and no longer able to bear children at the age of 91.
Exactamente, exactly. So Joseph was a gift from Jehovah to a barren woman that was not able to produce a child. Of course, Joseph was not the only one, but you could imagine Jacob at the age of 91. How did he feel about Joseph? Can anybody help me read Joseph's early years and dreams? Let me see. Bunny.
Joseph's early years and dreams. Joseph, the favored son of Jacob, had vivid dreams that foretold his future. These dreams indicated his rise to a significant position, stirring jealousy among his brothers, ultimately leading to his being sold into slavery in Egypt.
There you go. So now you know. Now you know the whole history. Rachel was barren. Rachel was pregnant. Rachel delivered Joseph when Jacob was 91. So his father showed favor to Jacob. Does anybody remember what kind of a gift did Jacob gave Joseph? Because he liked his son very much. Let's ask Lorna Butler. Lorna? Okay. Lorna's microphone is not working. Deborah.
Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Okay, great. Okay, so he received a robe or a special covering
Mhm.
because his father had that love for him that he wanted to show that. So
Mhm.
it was a special garment.
Yes, yes, indeed. But let's go over what the Bible says so that we can understand why Joseph was hated. Because there's more to the story, but the only way to understand it is by getting closer to what the Bible have to say. So why was Joseph hated? Let's go to Genesis chapter 37, and I would like someone to read verse 2. Why will Joseph get in trouble? Sylvia.
Oh no, is it working? Good. It says, this is the history of Jacob. When Joseph was 17 years old, the young man was tending the flock with the sons of
Bilhah.
Bilhah. Is that
Bilhah.
right?
Bilhah.
Bilhah. And the sons of Zipphah, the wives of his father, and Joseph brought a bad report about them to their father.
Okay. Can you see why Joseph was hated by his brothers? Can you see it? Let me see. Darlene.
He brought a bad report about them. So it was like he was a snitch.
Yeah. But it could also be looked from a different way. Joseph was telling his parents what his brothers were up to. Joseph was a righteous man. But I just wanted to help you understand, where did this hatred come from? Now let's go to Genesis chapter 37, and now we're going to read verse 5. So not only do they hate him because he was beautiful, he was respectful, but there's one more reason, and this was the hair that broke the camel's back. Let's go to Georgia Ashley.
Later, Joseph had a dream and told it to his brothers, and they found further reason to hate him.
There you go. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the first time where Joseph reveals, or the Bible reveals, that Joseph had the blessing to be able to interpret dreams. Let's see, why did they sell them? Verse 6 and 7. Jay Kasakov.
Okay, verse 6 and 7.
Mm-hmm.
It says, he said to them, please listen to this dream that I had. There we were binding sheaves in the middle of the field, when my sheaf got up and stood erect, and your sheaves encircled and bowed down to my sheaf.
Oh, no, not only is he telling his parents when the brothers are doing something bad, but now this dream takes it to another level. Let's read verse 8 to see the culmination of all of this. Let's ask Stephen from the Dunn family from Canada.
West Virginia.
Oh, West Virginia.
His brother said to him, are you really going to make yourself king over us and dominate us? So they found another reason to hate him. Because of his dreams and what he said.
Not only is he the favor of his parents, because he behaves good, but now he had a dream. And instead of being happy for him and saying, wow, brother, that's great that you have a dream, they have one more reason to hate him. Friends, I want you to pay attention to verse 8, because you tonight are going to see how verse 8 actually became fulfilled. You know the rest of the story from here, right? They were so angry that they sold Joseph, one of the great grandson of Abraham, the first offspring to receive a promise according to Genesis 3:15. Joseph is now going to suffer a lot of injustice because he was an upstanding young man. from a family of kids who were not so upstanding. And as with most haters, because they drink haterade, when Joseph's brothers observed the good example that Joseph had, instead of being motivated to better themselves and better their own life, the jealousy sought to destroy him. So what did they do? As you see there on the screen, is the year 1750, and they sell young Joseph into slavery. But while this is interesting for us to talk about, this was not a great turn of events for Joseph. What does Joseph do now? Does he become bitter and angry and hateful? You know the answers. And we hope, I think I heard young people in the audience. This could be you. This could be you in school. This could be you in your own household. This could be you in your neighborhood. What are you going to do? Are you going to get vengeance? No. Imitate Joseph. He decides to do what he has always done. He is an upstanding young man. Unfortunately, while the players in our stories have changed, the villain, Satan the devil, has not. The devil still hates anyone who tries to do the right thing. If you're suffering because you're doing the right thing, you are a modern day Joseph, especially when you are facing obstacles to do what is right. So, as sour of straight as Joseph was, things will get even worse when his master's wife pulled the very sexual harassment case registered in the Bible, and he accused Joseph of rape. Can you believe that? But that's what happened. This leads to Joseph being taken to jail, directed to jail, and what's worse, he does not pass go and he doesn't collect 200. And that's really, really sad. And there he goes. Why is he half naked? As he was trying to escape, he left his upper garment as he's fighting this crazy woman who's tried to force him to do, even though there was no Ten Commandment. Joseph knew that marriage was between a man and a woman, and he wasn't married to her, therefore she wasn't his. Many people question the truthness of Joseph being in prison, or even the Egyptians agreeing that they at some point had slaves. Friends, right now you're seeing a statue of the Metropolitan Museum of Art of New York City, who may have been done using actual prisoners in Egypt. This statue depicts how Egyptians bound their prisoner. And if you have been to the Met, this statue looks familiar. But this is not the only statue. We have found more statues at the Met that depicts how Egyptians treated people with facial hair. That is the key here. Facial hair. If they have facial hair, they were probably from another nationality. The book of Psalms, which was written by different writers that were not in Egypt, they register in a specific details that only someone who knew could have written this. Because the book of Psalms was written hundreds of years later after Joseph had lived. Can anybody help me read the book of Psalms, Psalms 105, verse 17 and 18? And we're going to invite Barbara Mojo to help us read that text.
Yes, Sister Moyo. It says, he sent ahead of them a man who was sold to be a slave, Joseph, With fetters, they bound his feet. His neck was put in irons.
Only the Bible can allude to such level of detail. As Sister Mojo read, it's amazing how much detail the Bible gives us. And friends, when those details match the artifacts that we have found at the museum, kaboom! Everything we have read can now be verified. We don't need to be verified, but now we can build a bridge with those who have very little faith on the Bible. Fun fact, the Genesis account of Joseph's imprisonment is one of the oldest records available of what Egyptian prisons and prisons life was like. We don't know a whole lot about ancient Egyptian prison, but we know enough to know what Jehovah's servants have to go through. So what happened next? Have Jehovah completely abandoned his friend Joseph? Or will God come to his rescue? How long did Joseph have to suffer this injustice? If you think about it, right now, it's very hard to calculate because there is nothing that can help us calculate forward and backwards. But there are enough events for us to calculate a total. Does anybody know how many years Joseph served as a slave and was also in prison? Approximately? What do people say? And you can put it on the chat. If you put it on the chat, I could open the mic. If not, I will open the mic. Monica has the right answer. Let me see what else. Okay, so I see a lot of people. Deborah also has the right answer. Irene, Catherine. Okay, let me call Janice Russell so that we can get this straightened up. Janice, how many years in total Joseph had to suffer injustice?
13 years.
And friends, we can say approximately 13 years because we don't know exactly that amount. Can anybody describe the picture that you're seeing on the screen? What's going on in the picture? Why am I showing this in the picture? Why is this a sign that Jehovah did not forget about Joseph? By the way, this painting is about 400 years old. Caleb or Casey, why am I showing this image?
It looks like the prison guards are like torturing Joseph.
Okay, thank you, Caleb. Let's call Lori. What do you see on this picture?
I think that's the cupbearer and the bread maker.
Bing, 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 bing. Correct. And Joseph is now in charge of the prison. Why will they make Joseph in charge of the prison? Why? Why would they do that? And we learned this in the Watchtower magazine of this weekend. Why will the guards make Joseph? Let's invite Ginger. Ginger Garden, your mic is open. Why will the prison guard make Joseph a attendant?
Because he was showing trustworthiness. He was respected. He was honest. He didn't. I can't think of another word. I'm sorry.
It's okay. What you said is enough. It's good enough. So apparently Joseph has not changed. Vicky Dangerfield, yeah, she says because Joseph always did his job. Joseph has not changed, even though the circumstances around him are pretty bleak. But wouldn't you do that? Would you suffer to do what is right? Well, I hope you do. But Joseph is a good example. Joseph's life underwent a complete turnaround in a good way this time. At this point in his life, Joseph has experienced a lot of random turnarounds, and none of them have been good. But this one was good because of his behavior, because he was an upstanding young man. The chief of the prison or the warden may have put Joseph in charge of other prisoners because of his good behavior. And we read something similar in this past week's Watchtower. With that in mind, I would like to ask you, friends, does anybody know when is the second time that Joseph is able to interpret dreams? I already showed you the first time where he showed it to his brother. When is the second time that Joseph is able to interpret dreams? Let's call Kathy Gonzalez, please.
Yes, it was at the time that when the baker made Joseph, the Pharaoh, aware of Joseph's dream, so he had Joseph brought to him.
There you go. Thank you, Kathy. Can anybody help me read Genesis chapter 40, verse 1 through 3? Let's see what's going on. Let's see what happened. And we're going to ask Isabella Dunn from the Dunn family, and I believe they are from West Virginia.
Yes.
There you go. I got it right.
After these things, the chief cupbearer of the king of Egypt and the chief baker sinned against their lord, the king of Egypt. So Pharaoh grew indignant at his two officers, the chief cupbearer and the chief baker, and he committed them to the jail of the house of the chief of the guard, to the place where Joseph was a prisoner.
Yeah. Yeah. So this time, thank you, Sister Dunn, for that fantastic reading. So what happened? Well, Jehovah gave an opportunity to show his power again. What would Joseph do now that two Egyptians were under his care? Will he enact a twisted revenge on them? I hate Egyptians. They are the reason why I'm here. No, he did not. Instead of making their life harsh as Egyptian has done to him, Joseph do completely the opposite. Instead of filling them with hate and anger, Joseph does a completely turnaround and he treat them with dignity. And we can see that on verse 4, 6, and 7. And friends, this is the second time that Joseph is able to interpret dreams. Can anybody help me read verse 6 and 7? Robert and Marietta.
Then the chief of the guard assigned Joseph to be with them and to take care of them, and they remained in jail for some time. When Joseph came in and saw them, they looked dejected. So he asked the officers of Pharaoh, who were in custody with him in his master's house, "Why are your faces gloomy today?"
So Joseph took care of this man, not with a bad attitude. He was willing. As I showed you in the picture earlier, he approached them and he probably asked them, "Hey, what's going on? Why you have such a gloomy face?" But he was genuinely interested in them. He took the initiative to inquire how people were doing, something that is not very common today. This tells us a lot about Joseph's nature and why Jehovah viewed him as his friends. And I know this is easy, but I need to ask, how do you know which one is Joseph and which one is a cupbearer? And I put the label in a way that will confuse you. Let's see if you're not confused. Judith, tell me, which one is a cupbearer and which one is the baker?
Well, the cupbearer and baker are sitting lower in the picture. Joseph has a beard, and Egyptians didn't have beards.
There you go. Thank you, Judith. And this is all listed in chapter 40. So, friends, I know we did not read this yet, but why was the cupbearer and the baker so gloomy? What were they sad? And this is a test of your memory because we already read it on a previous verse. Why were they so gloomy? What did they do? Sister Moore.
Well, both of them was sitting there. They had both of them had dreams, and Joseph had asked them to tell them about their dreams that they had, and so they was looking real gloomy about it because they didn't understand it.
All right, thank you, Sister Moore. Rita Mokel.
Yeah, in the harmony with that sister, they was dreaming, like they said, they couldn't understand it. And Joseph, at the time, he brought them at ease. I don't know if you want me to go that far. Did you want me to go after?
No, not yet, not yet. I just wanted to focus first and foremost, why are they in prison? Why would a baker be in prison? And why would a cupbearer be in prison? There's a point of the story, because once you understand it, it becomes crystal clear what Jehovah is going to do next. Let's see. I see. Oh, I have two Bunny. And okay, I know I remember which one I call. I did not call Bunny Young.
Actually, you did. I did. I read already. So if you wanted someone else, that's okay.
Oh, I call you because I thought I
Yes,
called.
I read a scripture earlier.
Okay, okay. Thank you, sister, for being so honest and kind. I already called Marcelina, and I haven't called Sister Jennifer Hobbs in this tour. I called her yesterday. Jennifer, hey,
Hi.
you know this memory of mine.
You're doing fine, brother. The two of them got in bad straits with the king.
There you go. So now we're talking. They got in trouble with the king. They got in trouble with the king. And there's another reason why they're going to become miserable. While they're there, Joseph had to interpret their dreams. And interpreting their dreams is another amazing accuracy of the Bible. Can anybody help me read Do You Know? This is the result of our research that we're sharing with you. And you can read it and you can see why interpreting dreams was such a big deal for the Egyptian. Let's call, Pauline from Manhattanville.
Okay, thank you. Says dream interpretations was of crucial importance in ancient Egyptian culture. Egyptians believed that dreams were divine messages sent by the gods or the spirit world. These visions could contain warnings, advice, or revelations about the future. For this reason, dreams were considered, can't see that.
A mean.
I messed up.
No, it's okay. It could be considered a means of direct communication with the divine and an essential tool for decision making.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you for
Thank you. Thank you.
helping me out with the reading. So, friends, the Bible is not wrong by saying that interpreting dreams was part of Egyptian culture. But who knew that? Who got ahead of the Egyptian practices and gave Joseph the ability to interpret dreams? who can look into the future and foretell what Joseph's brothers were planning on doing. And because of that, Jehovah gave that privilege. Clarence, who knows?
Yeah. Jehovah is the only one who could really interpret the dreams to take place in the future.
There you go. So if Jehovah gave Joseph the ability to interpret dreams, means that Jehovah knew ahead of time, even before Joseph knew, that in Egyptian cultures, dreams were very important. If Joseph's brothers would have known that, they would not have sold Joseph as slave, because that means that Joseph was going to succeed interpreting dreams. You see, Jehovah knew that the Egyptians were the dreams were viewed as a window to the spirit realm, a kind of like a message from the gods. Dreams were so important that it was once a practice to go and sleep inside a temple in the hopes of receiving a special dream. One could also pay a priest or an oracle to interpret their dreams for them. Does this sound familiar to you? Do people do this today using cards, using cups of coffee? Does this sound familiar? Let me see. This is like the watchtower. I'm looking for new hands that I have not called before. Ah, Vicky. Vicky Dangerfield. Vicky, give me your thoughts. Unmute.
Very much so.
How do people do that today?
Oh, yeah, the tea leaves, like you said, the tarot cards, the
tarot cards,
the horoscope folks.
Yeah. So nothing is new under the sun. Nothing is new. Satan continue to mislead the entire earth. So does it make sense now why the cupbearer and the baker were so sad? They hardly leave prison to visit a temple, priest, or oracle. So with no one to interpret their dreams, they were in sour strait. So imagine how happy they were when they find out that Joseph, free of charge, is able to interpret their dreams. They were happy. Yeah! Right? They were happy? Uh, no, they were not happy. At least one of them was not happy. You see, the cupbearer, his dream was explained that in 3 days he was going to be restored. He was gonna go back to be in the right hand side of the Pharaoh, holding his cup as he was before. However, verse 14 shares a very uh, good story for the cupbearer, but it does not share a good story about the bread maker. The bread maker was toast after this. So you would have thought that the cupbearer getting this free service, you would have thought that the cupbearer would remember him. However, verse 23 says that when he was free, he did not remember Joseph. And what's worse, he kept forgetting about him. So, is this the end? Does Joseph have nothing left to look forward but to look languish in prison? He cannot call the elders. Nobody knows he's there. He is an immigrant in someone else's country. Well, to be honest, from a secular point of view, it looks like Joseph's life is doomed, without hope. But that's if you look at it from a secular point of view. You see, Joseph likes to do what's right. Therefore, he must know about Jehovah. He knows that there is someone there even more important than the royal official or anybody who doesn't remember Joseph. Even during our bleakest of time, Joseph's friend Jehovah can cause something amazing to happen, even when things are completely dark and unlikely to happen. So, what happens next? Let me see who I have not called to read. Let's see who would like to read. Tina. Tina Kologowski.
Yes. Okay. The reading is at the end of 2 full years, Pharaoh dreamed that he was standing by the Nile River, and there, coming up from the river, were 7 fine-looking fat cows, and they were feeding on the Nile grass. There were 7 other cows that looked ugly and thin coming up after them from the Nile, and they stood alongside the fat cows by the bank of the Nile. Then the ugly thin cows began to eat up the 7 fine-looking fat cows. At this, Pharaoh woke up.
Yep. Pharaoh woke up, and I'm pretty sure he was sweating when he woke up. He was desperate to find out what was going on, but it doesn't stop there. Verse 5 to 7 says that he went back to sleep. I don't know what he ate. He probably ate something that was giving him heartburn, but he went back to sleep, and he had another dream with the number 7, with fat and skinny things. And verse 8, in the morning, he was agitated because he didn't know. And Brian Herbert is going to help us read verse 8. The reason for the echo is because there are 2 devices on the same house, and they're both connected. Rosa, I know you've read this text a gazillion time. Will you read it one more time? Rosa Avellanet. Oh, Rosa doesn't want to read. It's okay. Let's ask Emma Morris.
I was reading. I'm sorry, I didn't put on my. Could I read it?
Go ahead.
But in the morning, his spirit became agitated. So he sent for all the magic practicing priests of Egypt and all her wise men. Pharaoh related his dreams to them, but there was no one who could interpret them for Pharaoh.
No one. How convenient. So all the king horses and all the king men could not interpret the dreams. Ouch. There is a job opening. There is a job post. Friends, again, this was a huge deal. Dreams were not a laughing matter in Egyptian culture. Interpreting dreams was a serious business. In fact, here from the British Museum, we have a fragment of an ancient Egyptian dream book. It contains various dreams and their interpretation. We're not going to go into it because we don't care, but we know that this was true, especially when we have evidence from the museum. Interpreting dreams was a big deal. In the first dream, he sees cows and he sees himself standing by the Nile. But in the second dream, it doesn't sound like that appears to be a dream. It sounds as if he was seeing ears of grain. Well, did you interpret a dream when all your interpretations are based if a man see himself? Not actually. It is now, all of a sudden, that the cupbearer remembers that Joseph is like vanilla ice. You got a problem? Yo, he will solve it. Ice, ice, baby. Let's ask Emma Morris for a second time to help us with the reading.
Thank you. At that, the chief cupbearer spoke with Pharaoh, saying, I am confessing my sins today. Pharaoh was indignant at his servant, so he committed me to the jail of the house of the chief of the guard, both me and the chief baker. After that, we each had a dream on the same night. He and I each had a dream with his own interpretation, and there with us was a young Hebrew man, a servant of the chief of the guard. When we related them to him, he interpreted for us the meaning of each dream. It happened exactly as he had interpreted to us. I was restored to my office, but the other man was hung.
Whoa. Isn't that awesome? No, thank you. Isn't that awesome? But what's really awesome is that Joseph identified himself as one of Jehovah's people. Did you notice that? Verse 12. A young Hebrew man. This is beautiful. This is actually beautiful because now Pharaoh will ask for Joseph to go. The Pharaoh knows that Joseph is a Hebrew, a foreigner. They brought him to prison, and this is the funny part. He shaved and changed his clothes to see the Pharaoh. So at this time, the Pharaoh knows that he's a Hebrew. The Pharaoh knows that he worshiped another god. And very likely, Joseph is going to give credit to Jehovah. So it's very likely that the Pharaoh knew Jehovah's name because Joseph is not going to take credit. So we're going to pause here for another fun fact. I don't know about you, but does it seem odd to record this level of detail about Joseph shaving in the Bible? I mean, it doesn't talk about Joseph eating breakfast or putting on his shoes. Why not mention that? Apparently, Jehovah doesn't think that that's important. Well, what was an Israelite culture like? How did they feel about beards? That was a custom, right? How did the Egyptians feel about beard? Egyptians were what I call the Gillette generation. I asked this question before, but I'm going to ask this question again. How long did Joseph spend both as a slave and a prisoner? You can put it on the chat. There you go. Vicky remembers. Linda remembers. Okay, most people remember, so I'm going to display the answer so that we can get this straight from now on. Okay, guys, the answer is 12 plus years. Can anybody help me read, do you know? Let's read more about shaving, even though Jehovah's Witnesses, we have a different standing now. Let's ask Sister Brown, Cherie Brown.
While the Egyptians focused on external purity, hygiene, and
aesthetics,
ecstatic as a reflection of their connection to the gods, the Jews saw the beards as a symbol of their spiritual identity and obedience to divine laws. These practices reflect not only cultural differences, but also the core value and beliefs of each civilization.
Wow, great reading, Sister Brown.
You're
Good
welcome.
reading. So, why did Joseph shave if this was part of his identity? We have to go back to who Joseph was. He was a respectful young man, and he respected the law of that time. If presenting himself to the Pharaoh is like going to a temple, Joseph was going to shave. Hence, when you get to the Met in New York City, you will see artifacts like the one you're seeing on the screen. Right now, you're seeing a 3,500-year old shaving set from the Gillette. Well, I don't know if it's from the Gillette company from ancient Egypt. Apparently, Gillette has been in business for a long time. Ha ha ha. Anyway, another funny fact, those in Pharaoh's court had to shave not only their beard, but also their entire body, including their eyebrow. So did Joseph have to shave that much off? Well, maybe. There is a lovely picture of a very bold Moses with very drawn eyebrows in the April 15, 2014 Watchtower. So who knows? We'll have to ask him when he's resurrected. But this little tidbit goes to show that even in the smallest of detail, the Bible is accurate. At any rate, in day one, Joseph had gone from a prison hole to a high court of Pharaoh. But now what? Will Joseph be able to do all the wisest man in Egypt could not do? Well, thanks to his friend Jehovah, the answer is yes. Joseph, as humble as ever, gives all the credits to Jehovah and informs the Pharaoh that this strange dream, the one and the other, even though they look different, they are the same. Egypt will face 7 years of bountiful harvest, followed by 7 years of famine. So, what is the outcome? What will the Pharaoh do after that happens in front of him? This Pharaoh was cool. He removes the ring, according to Genesis chapter 41, verse 41 and 42. He removed his ring and he gave it to Joseph. Wow, that is so cool. And guess what? If you come to New York and you come to us, hey, Stalin, I'm in New York, I'm visiting Bethel, I would like to go to the Met, we'll be more than happy to give you a tour and show you a ring that is more than 3,500 years old. We're not saying that this is the ring that Joseph had. We're just going to say it was customary that people in power had a ring which they will use on wax when they were seal a document. So Joseph went from forgotten prisoner to prime minister. He's now on position number 2, only after the Pharaoh himself. In the immortal worlds of the 80, and if you're from the 80s, you're going to remember this, he gets the power, power. The king even gives him with his own ring that I told you is about 3,000 years old, solid gold. And you can see this ring when you come to New York. So now, here's Joseph. Respected, acknowledged. Here's another fun fact. In order to be prime minister of Egypt, a person had to possess certain skills and qualifications. He had to be able to control his emotions, be adept at managing people and material, as well as act as a scribe. So how did Joseph have all the skills of a scribe? remember his job in prison? The time that he spent in prison was the time where he probably learned hieroglyphics, where he probably learned all the skills that was needed to be prime minister. So when we feel sorry for Joseph, oh, Joseph, he's in jail. Jehovah is doing miracles with him. And you could imagine Joseph going in Egypt in front of everyone. And people were screaming, thank you, Joseph. You have saved our life. And Joseph took his job seriously. This is an old painting representing Joseph, probably reading on something. And this is at the Met. This is at the Met. And this thing was discovered at a tomb. Egyptians had the weird practice that when people were buried, you were going to be buried with things that was happening in your lifetime, so that when you wake up, you could remember what life was like. Of course, that never happened. They never resurrected. But this thing shows us exactly what Joseph did. Can anybody tell me, again, as a matter of repetition, who are the ones who are writing and who are the ones who are doing the carrying? Who are doing the heavy lifting and who are keeping an inventory? And the key is in the hair. Let's ask Deborah Elliott.
Well, the ones that's doing the heavy lifting are the slaves, and they're the ones that have the hair.
There you go. And the one without the hair are actually the Egyptians, and they're doing the light work of a scribe, just as the Bible says that Joseph would do. And it's funny, the Bible does say that it took the cupbearer approximately 2 years to remember about Joseph. But during that time, Joseph just got better at what he was doing. Many wonder, why did Jehovah allow this to happen in the first place? But we can see now the fulfillment of what Peter writes in the first letter from Peter, chapter 5, verse 10. Some of our suffering are part of a training that appears to help Joseph, especially when he had to deal with his family. You know, his family is now in Egypt, but before that, he needs to do a couple of things just to make sure that his brothers have learned a lesson. He puts a cub in one of the bag to be able to keep his younger brother with him. Of course, when Joseph is by himself, he is crying to see that what he has to do is going to hurt his dad. In these paintings, which I took time looking, actually depict what the Bible have to say. Imagine the brothers when they saw that in the bag of the youngest one, Benjamin, there was a cup as someone who was trying to steal. And you see the cup right there on the screen. Imagine how devastated the brothers were. And this is where Joseph realized they have changed. So the next time they come, I'm going to give them a hug and I'm going to reveal myself. Yes, friends, this is the story of Joseph. Joseph was considered Jehovah's friend. He and his family are finally reunited during a famine. During a famine, which Jehovah have foretold. Fun fact, Remember when we talked about how prime ministers have to be able to hold their emotion before they reveal something? Well, that's exactly what Joseph did. He sent all the Egyptians out of the room so that he can show his emotions to his family. Even in this part, the Bible is accurate in the smallest of the things. So you could imagine and be 100% sure that Jacob and the 70 souls that crossed the Euphrates River, they may have seen the pyramids. Of course, they did not see them like my wife and I are going to see them in May. We're going to see them like that. Joseph and his family, they saw it like you see it there in the upper left. It's a type of a limestone, white limestone that was overlaid with gold at the top, which tells you that Egypt was a powerful nation at that time. But you know, Satan doesn't stop. Satan doesn't stop. If there's one thing that you can give credit to Satan, is that he doesn't stop. So in an unspecified period of time, the Bible says in Exodus chapter 1, verse 8, in time, we don't know how much time, right? In time, there arose over Egypt a new king. And take a look at what the Bible says. One who did not know Joseph. Consequently, the Egyptians forced the Israelite into hard slavery. So our story continues. Now Joseph is no more. And the Pharaoh is saying, Joseph, who? This new king said, freedom. Friend, I'm showing you a picture or a drawing of Joseph's funeral. Does anybody remember what was Joseph's final plea to the Israelites? What was Joseph's final ask after he died? Let me see who I have not called. Oh, I have not called Julie and Christiane from Alberta, Canada. Julie or Christiane, what was Joseph's final plea?
Wasn't it to take his bones into the promised land?
There you go. Very good. Man, you guys are good. Yes, Joseph's request was, when you leave Egypt, take my bones with you. Egypt is not his home. The promised land is. And this is our story continue. Friends, I invite you, let me see. I invite you to join me on Sunday, where I'm going to show you that Mizraim, which is another name from Egypt, is actually connected to Noah. And you're going to learn that on Sunday at 8. Friends, Joseph could have foreseen both Egypt rise and falls, but his vision reminds us that Joseph knows Jehovah. If we were to ask him, what do you think would have happened to the Egyptians if they mistreated Jehovah's people? Joseph would have known. Joseph would have remembered that when the Egyptians took Sarah from Abraham, Joseph would have remembered that Jehovah God sent plagues to the Egyptian. Joseph would have known that the plagues would have been a divine manifestation, reinforcing God's power over the Egyptian gods. He never wrote it, he never said it, but we would have known that if we were to talk to Joseph tomorrow, Joseph would have told you the plague served as a powerful reminder of Jehovah's sovereignty and judgment. Joseph might have seen them as an opportunity for repentance and transformation. That's why a mixed company of Egyptians left with the Israelites. Joseph would have illustrated the lessons about humility and the necessity of recognizing one's action towards others, particularly over our oppressor. In conclusion, when we look at things through Joseph's eyes, we see that Jehovah will always go to bat for his people. These events remind us of the ongoing struggle against oppression and the importance of faith and resilience in the face of adversity. Jehovah will never leave his people by itself. Thank you very much. I hope you liked this tour. You were the first one to actually go through this motion. We hope you enjoy it. These virtual tours are only possible, friends, because of friends like you. Some of you have decided to support us by becoming a member on our YouTube channel, where you can watch all these videos for free. Or some of you have decided to make a small donation by buying a coffee for me and my wife. It is interesting that when we first started, and many people don't know the story, but when we started doing virtual tours, we had no job because it was during the pandemic. But it is interesting how doing this labor of love, Jehovah provided through you, friends, what we needed and the other tour guides. So what was a hobby when we first started now has become sort of like a part-time job. And it is a dream come true to be standing in front of you doing these tours, especially when we read the Watchtower a couple of weeks ago, where the organization is suggesting parents to increase the imagination of their children by either taking them physically to the museum or by going virtually to the museum. And we have a lot of virtual tours recorded for your pleasure. So, in a nutshell, myself, Ed Salazar, Thomas, Aaron Watson, these are the 4 tour guides conducting virtual tours today. In New York, we have a group of 6 brothers and sisters that can give you the tour in person to show you the 10 plague at the Met, to show you the life of first century Christians when they were in Rome, or if you want a tour that begins with Adam and ends in Jesus, you can also see that as well over there. But if your health allows you to travel, if your health allows you to visit another country, why don't you join us on May 1st? I promise you, I'm going to be wearing this costume in Egypt. I'm going to dress like an Egyptian. I'm going to be Joseph in Egypt on May 1st and to May the 11th. If you cannot come, don't worry. We're going to be doing a live video to show you, friends, the fun that we're going to have. Let me show you a short video about this. there you go, friends. It's going to be funny. It's going to be fun. On behalf of the entire My Virtual Bible Tour family, we thank you for your support. Please talk to others about this free tour, about the things that we're doing. We appreciate all the greeting cards and the notes and the drawings that your kids have sent to us. And this is just another way that you can support this project that we're going to go now up to 5 years. 5 years doing virtual tours. Well, we hope you enjoy it, and we hope to see you on another episode of My Virtual